Jack is a great guy. He's written a fantastic book. Everybody's talking about it. Go get it. And he's been my friend right from the beginning of this whole beautiful event. And we're going to turn it around and make our country great again. Amen.
And what the penalty is going to be, if you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail, no early exits, no nothing. You get 1 year in jail. If you burn a flag, you get, and what it does is incite to riot. I hope they use that language, by the way. Did they?
Yeah, incitement is
incite to riot. And you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail. You don't get 10 years, you don't get 1 month. You get 1 year in jail, and it goes on your record. And you will see flag burning stopping immediately.
All right, Jack Posobiec back live. Impromptu, interesting cultural debate that President Trump has reignited here regarding the burning of an American flag. Now, this is an interesting one because it goes all the way back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, because during the Spanish-American War, this is really when many states began, and World War I, this is when many states around the country began passing laws banning the desecration of the U.S. flag. By the 1930s, 48 states had statutes criminalizing burning, mutilating, or defacing the flag of our great nation. However, it was in the 1930s and then even a little bit after in the 1980s that the Supreme Court began striking these down. And this is, it's talking about flag burning and then really the Vietnam War is when it came up. And the incitement statute that they're bringing up, that decision was only made in 1989. So states have had these on the books for quite some time. Now, personally, I'm all for it. A nation is important, and the nation's symbol is the American flag. In Poland, it is a criminal act to desecrate the Polish flag. If you do not enshrine these things in law, if they do not get special protection, then people will not believe they have any special protection. Libby Emmons, the editor-in-chief of Human Events and the Post Millennial, is joining us now. Libby, what do you think about the new executive order?
Yeah, I was watching this along with you and along with a lot of people here in America about the flag burning, and I was of two minds about it. On the one hand, I am not in favor of burning the flag. I don't think that that's an appropriate action. I love this country. I think we should all love this country, and we should honor the country by honoring some of the symbols of the country, like our flag. But on the other hand, looking back at the Texas v. Johnson decision from 1989 and the reasons behind burning the flag, and the statute there about incitement, I do think that it is a form of political speech to burn the flag. We saw that in all of the instances that you mentioned. It was a big deal, in the Vietnam era and civil rights. And so I wonder if it's appropriate to legally ban it, or if this is yet another thing that we Americans should not be told legally that we cannot do. Is just something that we should not do, and we should know better than that. Ideally, if someone's going to burn the flag as a form of protest, it has to be the ultimate severe thing that they are actually protesting, and not just, your garden variety random foreign wars.
So it does seem, though, that he's constructed the language, and that the White House office that puts this through, they've used language that directly relates to that 1989 case because they want this to be reviewed by the Supreme Court. It seems very much as though they're trying to incite a Supreme Court review of this, which they know they'll obviously get.
Yeah, I think that you're exactly right. And one thing I do love about this administration is how many things they have brought to the Supreme Court, how many instances they say, this needs review again, this needs review again, and that's great. And yeah, in the Texas v. Johnson case, what we have is a situation where the man was burning a flag as part of a protest. There was no rioting. It was essentially a peaceful protest other than the flag burning. And so the Supreme Court said there was no incitement to violence. There was no incitement to rioting. So because of that, we're going to say that this is protected First Amendment speech. And yeah, including the language about incitement, I think is really, really important. I think you're exactly right about that, because what the administration is saying is if you are burning a flag as part of, a violent action as part of an incitement to further mayhem, then that's something that's going to be punishable with a year in jail. Another thing that they did in this EO that I found interesting was they put this flag burning under more scrutiny by local law. So they're saying if you're local law enforcement and someone is burning a flag as part of a protest or anything else in a place that is not legally allowed for open burning, or in a place where, you know, this can be considered property destruction, like it's somebody else's flag, which is something that we've seen in some of the protests and riots in Seattle and Portland, where they take somebody else's flag and then desecrate it, then that is something that local law enforcement really needs to pay attention to. So those are a few areas that are different, that make it different from the Texas v. Johnson case. And I would love to see this back before the Supreme Court. I think it's definitely time, especially given the situation where so many localities and municipalities have put into place hate crime type of laws against burning pride flags.
Well, before we go there, and you're right, of course, the left would totally be for this if it was about pride flags or trans flags or anything else. But here's the exact line that they have. Notwithstanding the Supreme Court's rulings on First Amendment protections, the court has never held that that American flag desecration conducted in a manner that is likely to incite imminent lawless action, or that is an action amounting to, quote, fighting words, is constitutionally protected. And they specifically cite the Texas v. Johnson case of 1989. And so this is exactly what they're talking about. They're saying that in these, basically, I guess it's like, if you're going to perhaps, you know, burn a flag on your own property in private, that this is based on and I'm not a lawyer, my reading of it, but it seems as though that would not necessarily be covered by this. But what they are talking about, and I think we just had it up there, one of the crazy Union Station riots that was going on, more of those situations.
Yeah, I think that that's right. And if you look at this this footage, and we've seen a lot of footage
I can't remember
like
if I was
this
at that one or not.
Yeah, well, there's been so many, right? But if you look at this kind of footage and what they're doing, this is intentionally designed to be inciting, right? I mean, a lot of these kinds of protests are the ones that in 2020 then would see the destruction of statues, which also Trump has signed an executive order saying that that's absolutely not allowed. And I think that a lot of times what protesters are doing, what?
Oh, I was just going to add, there is a line here specifically pointing out that this is also being used by foreign nationals now, and we saw this in the LA riots, to act to intimidate and threaten violence against Americans because of their nationality and place of birth. They're talking about Americans whose nationality is American and that their place of birth is America. So why would a foreign national be given First Amendment protections to burn our flag in our country when they're not even from here? I mean, to me, that's ludicrous. I mean, I would even, if we had longer time, and maybe, who knows, maybe we'll see each other in Timcast this week at some point, hint, hint, that, you know, the phrase freedom of expression is found nowhere in the Bill of Rights. This is something that was added on by courts later in the 20th century. I don't think the Founding Fathers ever intended for the First Amendment to include freedom of expression, any and all expressions. Clearly, there were lots of expressions. I mean, they used to tar and feather people back in those days, but they didn't write that was protected by the First Amendment at all, and they clearly could have. I mean, this was a time of great public political intersection where you saw things like that, but they didn't protect that. They specifically protected speech, and I think that is the spoken word and the written word. I don't think that it extends to this crazy broad place where we brought it now.
Yeah, I think those are really good questions. It also brings up the question of campaign contributions. Is that freedom of speech? Is our political contributions freedom of speech? And then you also have questions. We saw last year in New York City, pro-Palestinian protests where people were taking down American flags, not burning them or desecrating them, but taking them down and putting up Palestinian flags instead. Is that something that is protected speech, or is that a violation against the flag and against symbols of America. There
Libby
are so
Emmons,
many different
folks,
questions.
go give her a follow at Libby Emmons. And of course, always be reading humanevents.com and thepostmillennial.com. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.